So good evening, and people here and people on the conference line. I chose this subject for the teachings here in the Madison area some time ago, with every hope that things would not be troubling and that all of the issues that were bothering us and causing us to have manifest suffering, I thought that they would be all resolved by the time we got here, and we would be able to rejoice. But in fact, that is not so. Although we have had lovely weather, as I have said, that others have not, that this is not due to our good karma, that we have not experienced floods and hurricanes or extreme drought, that we are a part of what has been happening in the climate suffering, the weather suffering, which is not finished yet, that we have more hurricanes on the way. And I was just reading that the people of Puerto Rico have experienced tremendous devastation, but seem to have a resiliency that is bringing them together as well as back to normal life as quickly as possible. And good news is that there was no loss of life in Puerto Rico, even with this terrible hurricane. And so we have weather. We have, many of you are teachers, or people who are affected by state and federal laws in education. Wondering, I listened to a long interview today on NPR, how the state of Wisconsin is going to be trying to educate the students better, and a lot of trouble, a lot of infighting. What is the best way to address giving a quality education? And so people's minds who are trying to resolve problems, their minds are troubled. That there is a way to produce good decisions, shall we say, but not with a troubled mind. And so we have found trouble on our doorstep because we are citizens of this world. We're citizens of this world, and not just of our own neighborhood. In one way, we could say there has always been trouble, and that would be true. Of floods and famines, difficult kings, and armies invading. This seems to be the theme of our world. And yet, for the most part, we weren't there. We weren't there for the invading armies. I actually was there, but anyway, we'll pass that by. But we are here right now, and we are the experiencers of our current dilemma. That those of us who have gathered here for this discussion tonight. Somewhat about Buddhism. I hope we'll get to that point. Is that we are the experiencer of what is causing our own minds to become troubled. And so I have to go to Mr. Rogers. You know what I'm going to say, don't you? Mr. Rogers said, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. That he's actually speaking to children when on his famous, I don't know if I've ever watched the show, but I've seen little snippets on YouTube, and quite an admirable person that he was. And so it's not about trouble. It's about help, isn't it? That we are people who are not only helpers, you are helpers, but you are also troubled. And as I said, when you're troubled, it's hard to make good decisions. And so we must fall back upon the ancient wisdom of compassion and altruism and kindness to discover some snippet, something that will change our mood. That the darkness can very easily settle in. You know, a pond that has, I passed today, that a pond that had the Canada geese would be on all winter. And I looked and it was all covered with the green scummy slime that happens in the end of summer. And you see the green scummy slime, you certainly don't want to swim there or even go near it. And even the geese didn't want to swim in it. But if you would go up to the water and if you would part it, you would see that the slime and scum is all on the surface. And if you brushed it away, that you could see the clear water right down to the bottom. And as you stood back to admire your cleverness, the green scummy slime again covered the surface. And so this is maybe where we are at, huh? That out of our learning from our parents and from all the goodness and from every wonderful Facebook meme that we have learned that we can part the slime and we can see the goodness and we can achieve our compassionate goals. And then the phone rings, or you turn on the news, and the mind becomes very closed and dark again. And so this is what I would like us to think about this weekend. I would like us to delve into the scary parts of troubling mind, how we have troubled our own mind and how we have troubled the minds of others. We don't just keep it to ourselves, do we? And so we have a responsibility to not only part the slime, but to clean it off so that we can be the helpers. When the helpers become troubled, then there are no helpers. There are no helpers. Mr. Rogers would agree with me. Wherever he has been reborn, maybe he'd be like 15 years old or something. And he'd say, yes, that's true, in his lovely, kind voice. And so we must make effort to achieve something special. And that something special we're going to call compassion in troubled times. So I'd like to go back here to think about help. To think about help. And I ask you, what does help mean to you? There are many, many answers, but what does help mean to you? I mean, in the most severe form, we have right now, we still have survivors in the Mexico earthquake that are calling, help, help, help. And the helpers have insisted that everyone be very quiet so you can hear, so they can hear those cries of help. If someone is drowning, they're going to shout as loud as they can, help, help me, help, help. Hoping that someone who is capable of helping them will come. So those are the extreme forms, I think. There's many kinds of help. What does it mean when I say help? What does that mean to you? Yes?
There's some situation that one person can't either deal with or accomplish on their own.
There's something happening, and the person who is, whether you see someone in help or whether you're talking about needing help yourself, which one were you?
Just the dynamic of help.
The dynamic is help means that there's something that one cannot handle alone. What else? What does it mean to you? Yes?
I can't do it myself.
I can't do it myself. I can't do it myself. But for many people, when they think of help, they don't think of asking for help. It's just a kind of, I need help. But if someone asks to help them, what do they say?
No, it's okay.
It's okay, I can do it, I can figure it out, right? So I don't know what this help, what the definition of this help exactly is. It's a sort of it's a modest help. It's a kind of change your mind kind of help, right? What does it mean to you? What does help mean to you?
I often ask for help when I'm confused about my options or what might be beneficial. So I ask for help when I'm confused.
So asking for help when you're confused means that it isn't that you don't have options or that you don't know what to do. You just don't know which one to choose. And why would that be? Why can't you choose? Is it because all of the options are so delicious and magnificent? No. Is it because the reasonable options you don't want to do?
I think because I can't understand what the benefits and drawbacks of the choices are, or I don't know which drawback is the one to address.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing is that the mind is occupied in a kind of litany that doesn't seem to have any exit or success by a final decision. Huh? Yes, what does help mean to you?
Well, I was just feeding off of what Pema said. Sometimes when people are faced with choices, they may see something that would work, but they are concerned or they're convinced they don't have the resources available to them to choose that option. So help might be providing those extra resources needed to make an option feasible.
Good, good. That you're looking for help because you've made the decision, but you don't have what you need in order to carry it out. That's a good kind of help. I think we all know that. Yeah. What does help mean to you, Doma?
Perhaps it could be the honesty of knowing that you can't do something and seeing that someone else can for yourself.
Yeah, good. That there's a kind, help is a kind of honesty, as Doma's saying, where you finally realize after you've gone through, I can manage, I can do it, to realize that you can't do it. Not only that, but someone over there could do it much better than I could. And that's the honesty part, huh? Like that. What is help? What does help mean to you? Assistance? Helping to carry the burden? Sharing the burden? Sharing the activity? You know, in Tibet, that people rarely worked alone. This is something at Lotus Lake that I have strongly encouraged. People to ask others for help, and to, when someone offers to help, to accept their help. That there is something about a shared task that is about community, it's about cohesiveness, it's about respecting others, it's about respecting your own needs. And in Tibet, it takes 2 people to shovel. In India also they do this. How do you shovel with 2 people? You tie one person is holding the end of the shovel, and the other person has tied a string next to the metal part of the shovel itself. And so they dig in, and the person holding the rope helps toss the dirt. 2 people, 1 shovel.
It works really well.
That in Tibet, if there is construction to be made, that people gather together. For example, if they were building a monastery or some kind of public building, and that there are special songs that they sing together while they are tamping down the earth, and not a lot of concrete, at least in the past, tamping down the earth and singing songs together as they are moving along. Huh? A strong sense of cohesiveness. They do mantras, they do special, it's really more special construction songs, actually. Huh? What do you think? Would you like to hear construction songs? You know, seeing the workmen on the road like that, and they're all happily singing, and the guy or the woman holding the sign, the stop sign, and singing a song. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Other places, that's right. Other places and other times. A sense there is a kind of sad and lonely, and from a Tibetan point of view, a sad and lonely thing to do a task all by yourself. Cooking, cleaning, building. Yeah. What would you like to say?
In systems theory, there is a principle called synergy,
Synergy.
which basically we know as the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
That's right.
So when I would teach student nurses, I would tell them that, or even talk to aides, you know, you can take care of your patients and you can take care of your patients. But if you work together to take care of both sets of patients,
Yeah.
you will be done faster
Right.
and expend less energy.
And it's pleasant.
Yes,
And
and
it's
so that synergy is somehow working together, you produce more than if you took the sum of what you each could do and added them together.
And carrying the burden of having to do a task all by yourself is stressful. And as soon as you have, even if they're not that good at it, as soon as you have another person to work with, that there is a kind of shared responsibility that takes the pressure off. I wish American culture had more of this. This is what I call, this is what help means to me, is togetherness, shared responsibility, shared effectiveness, like that. What does it mean to you?
Something in help really reminds me of refuge.
Refuge, yes?
It's a similar feeling, though maybe not quite the same.
What would you like to say about it?
I guess like there, you were talking about the feeling of loneliness and doing a task alone, and
Yeah.
and how help sort of resolve that, and I think that that in particular reminds me pretty strongly of refuge.
There is a, for those of you who may not understand about Buddhist refuge, that there is a kind of reliance that we have on our, we might say, on our future. That we, right now, we belong to this world. That we belong to the suffering of this world. We belong to the tasks of this world. We belong to our own tasks. They own us. They own us. And we are their willing or unwilling slave. And this is what we call samsara. However, there is a future possibility that we have, which is part of the awakened state. And in the awakened state, that, or prior to the awakened state, that we are introduced to, I'm going to say, elements of the awakened state. And one of those elements is you're not alone. You're not alone. And not only are you not alone, but that there is guidance and protection from the awakened state. And as we turn toward the awakened state, that we are setting down our stress because we have found the lifeline to our next way of being. Not just that, but there are many aspects of refuge prior to the awakened state. But the aspect that I'm thinking about right now is establishing karma, literally establishing karma for the enlightened state. And so to do that, it is good to know enlightened, what's the word? What would be the word? Enlightened mojo. It's okay to say that? Yeah? that this power, isn't mojo kind of a power? Isn't it mean? It's a vibe too. It's a what? It's kind of a vibe. Okay, a vibe, like that. But this power, we are introduced to slowly as we are capable, and as our disappointment in samsara, or the way things are, or our slave state, we might say, as that becomes more distressing, that we are simultaneously achieving new connections, new awarenesses that are connected to the awakened state. If someone suddenly gave you the most profound disappointment in life and the way things are, if one day you were just happy-go-lucky, and the next day you realize that it was not the way you thought it was. You might not be able to wake up, but instead become very depressed and incapable of achieving anything, helping others, helping yourself. And so Buddhism introduces you gradually to the disappointment, at the same time offering you ideas regarding higher functioning reality and going, you know, really you do belong more over here. That this enlightened state might be a better fit. It might be a better fit for you, okay? And that's what Buddhism tells you. However, the process of going to the awakened state, and I'm kind of getting off this, I'm just sidebar here. The process of going to the awakened state doesn't depend upon the grace of the awakened state. It depends upon you. It depends upon you. And that's why Buddhism teaches about altruism, teaches about helping, teaches about another word for help might be, another version of help might be benefiting others. And that's the words that we use in Buddhism. We want to benefit others, which is a more sacred sound to this help. That we don't want to, we want to give them big help. And so we call this benefiting. However, this help has many different degrees of where your head is at when you are offering this help. And so when I say, what does help mean? Nobody said, but I will say it for you. I do what I can when the opportunity arises. I will help if I have the opportunity, if I have the time, if I have the money, I will help. Okay? This is the most common version of help. But if I'm too busy, or if I'm interested in something else, then I'm not available to help. And we say, okay, why aren't I available to help? Because I've got to go to work every day, because the garage is a mess, because I've got children to raise. All these things are true. All these things are true. But your mind is the one that is directing this idea, I will help if I can, but I bet I can't. And Buddhism introduces you to the mental state called altruism. Altruism, yeah. Actually, I'm going to go back because I'm not finished talking about help, and I don't want to talk about altruism yet. So, the mind, these are how people are trained. Different cultures, different time, different eras that people felt, for example, in a town the size of Blue Mounds. It's not a big town. You would know everybody. You would have regular gatherings that the community would come together if someone was sick or needed help. But now people drive to Madison to work, and they come home and they sleep, and then they go back to Madison, as though Madison held the clue to their safety and happiness. Right? It's a bedroom community now. People don't know each other. So we have idea, this person is my next door neighbor, okay? That person I know, but I don't know the person on the other side of them. I don't know my next door neighbor's next door neighbor. And so, if help is needed, then who are you going to help first? I mean, besides your family and yourself, of course. You might help your next door neighbor. Because there's a social aspect to help. That there is a social duty to help your neighbor. That there is an attitude. I am the kind of person who is open to help. Open to help. Well, not exactly open to help, but open to help the neighbor, but not the neighbor's neighbor. And so we have lost something, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time decrying that. We have lost something which should be part of every community. And so we rely on doctors and therapists. We rely upon healers. We rely upon friends to be our helpers, and we have a kind of reciprocity of help. They helped me when I was in need, and therefore I help them when they are in need. It's a kind of business deal. I mean, we don't say it that way. We say it because we love them, and yeah, I'm sure you do. But there's a kind of exclusion. There's an exclusion aspect to the way we dole out our help. Huh? Or, God forbid, someone didn't help you when you were in need. And now, by God, you're not going to help them. So not only have we created an enemy in our own mind, they don't even know it. They don't know it. We don't know why they didn't help. And so we have made a lot of decisions about who we will help and who we won't help. Okay. Enter the healer. Enter the healer who is coming out of this milieu, who is having feelings of compassion, of wanting to do more than simply neighborly things, which everyone is willing to do. That they want to see some kind of wellness. They want wellness. They just don't want to help. They want people to get well. They want people to be happy. And so at night, when everything is quiet, they may have thoughts such as, why can't people be happy? Or, I offered help to this person in a very genuine and compassionate way, and they were not open to receiving it. Why? Why? There's a lot of compassion, is a lot of why. Why is it this way? Why is it so? Why are people sick? Why are people suffering? They have options. There are those there to help. Mr. Rogers said it. He knew. We are one of those helpers. Am I a helper? Am I a compassionate? Am I a healer? Or what does it take? What would it take to help people? What would it take for people to accept whatever value of compassion that I am ready to offer? Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe there's something I'm either doing or not doing that is not allowing me to make that connection to help them. Maybe my compassion is mixed up. Maybe I feel something, but maybe my skills are not good enough. By the way, in Tibetan, that compassion and skillful is the same word. Something which is not really thought of well, those two ideas together in English language. that we think that perhaps that compassion is a kind of hurt that's happening in the heart center. And the more we hurt, the more we're compassionate. This is not compassion. This is some kind of emotional, what they call dilettante. Dilettante? Like fooling around with your own emotions. Or identifying with the suffering of someone so strongly that you're incapable of doing anything except suffering along with them. Many people believe that that is compassion. To the extent that you are able to experience the same suffering that they are, this is not careful. This is not skillful. And so, we might think then, I wonder if there is a way for me to learn how to be compassionate enough so that people really benefit from my care. For those of you who are very busy people, which is everybody here, it would be wise for you to learn the skills that can quickly make you more compassionate, rather than trying this and trying that on your own. So, a little bit of history, 2,600 years, since the time of the Buddha, and Buddhas before him, and Buddhas who will come in the future, that there is some ideas that the Buddhism has to offer. And one of the greatest among them is called the Mahayana, or greater vehicle. This is the aspect of Buddhism which focuses on attaining this awakening through compassion. Through compassion, combined with a thorough understanding of the illusory nature of this samsara. And that's it. We don't need to go on. That's it. That's the plan. The people who have done this, who have actually awakened through this altruism, are called bodhisattvas. You've probably heard that. And so we call this the bodhisattva ideal, and it is something that every human being is capable of attaining. Every human being. There is no one who has been too bad, so bad, that they could never awaken. It won't happen. Even beings who are in hell will become awakened or liberated. We hope awakened. And so, the bodhisattva ideal is what I am promoting. Why? Because not only do we need more helpers, as Mr. Rogers has suggested, but we need skillful helpers. We need skillful helpers. And so, what do you think is the difference? I'd like us to really bear down on this idea. What is the difference between altruistic, which means there's no real benefit there for you? Altruistic means that you might not win anything. You might not get more famous. Your compassion may not make you any money. Your compassionate action, maybe they won't even thank you. Maybe you feel like, oh, a lot of people say, I got more out of it than they did. This is actually a very common, people who are compassionate. I benefited more than they did by my helping them. What if you didn't even benefit? What if you gave them help, skillful help, with the altruistic attitude, and you feel like you didn't benefit at all? Would that be altruism? Yes, it would. That would be altruism. Altruism does not have a shred of self-concern. That we're not doing it because we want to feel better by helping people. We're not doing it. We're doing it. We're not doing it because they're my friend. I may not even know them. We're not doing it because I don't like that person, but I'm going to help them anyway because then that would be really good for me. No. I'm going to help someone. I don't know them. I may never see them again. There may be nothing in it for me. And yet I'm going to do it. And this is what the bodhisattvas do. They don't need to help. They're okay. Everybody is their friend. And so we have, on one hand, we have the learning that all human beings do, which is about help. Even as small children, you had to help your mom by taking out the garbage. You had to help by sweeping the floors. You learned about help at a very young age. If you didn't, ooh, how sad. You knew that you needed help when you went to school. That's what your teachers do, is they help you. Why? Because it's their job. We know about help, but we know very little about altruism. I'm not saying you don't have moments of altruism. That's great. Altruistic compassion. It's almost overwhelming. It's like we could call it love. Feeling of love and wanting to do, and you wish you could do more, but not skillful enough. And that's compassion, right? We don't have the kind of compassion that is the skillful, that can really cut to the center of the problem and help others. You could be efficient through altruism. So how do we go from this wonderful human learning to altruism? I'd like us to think here for a few minutes about what is the difference between those two. Let's close our eyes and think about it for a moment. I want to think about it.
The difference between what?
Between help and altruistic compassion. What is the difference? What is the difference? Let's just take a couple of minutes here. First feel one, and then feel the other, and then compare those two dynamics. By the way, this is a kind of analytical meditation that we do in Buddhism, so I didn't want to give it a fancy name. But what do you think? What is the difference? What's your idea? You don't have to be a scholar. You just have an ordinary idea about what's the difference. Yes.
I think it can help. You're projecting yourself. It's like you're seeing yourself in that person.
You're seeing yourself. You're projecting yourself, or you're seeing yourself in that person, possibly, yes?
I guess my idea that I'm going
Yes,
with
yes.
is that the help can still have this self kind of
A help
position.
can be self-referent.
Whereas the altruism, compassion might not even be about that person.
Might not even be about that person.
It's kind of that larger feeling of wanting others.
Larger feeling of wanting others.
Others to be.
Yeah. So kind of a spreading feeling that altruism isn't particularly about the person that you're helping. That there is some larger principle involved in altruism that is as Zopa was saying in the beginning, that there's some kind of dynamic which is happening. There's some kind of dynamic in altruistic compassion. And so it spreads out. It doesn't just end with that person. What's your idea? What's the difference?
Well, I had this same thing. Just the energetic helping feels small, and altruism feels very big.
Helping feels small, and whereas altruism feels bigger, or big. Yes, dear.
Well, and in biology and biological systems, they talk about altruism.
Yes?
That people would, without thinking, jump into a lake to
Yes.
save a drowning child.
Yes.
And from a biological point of view, you want the next generation of genes to go forward. I mean, that's what.
So you're saying that we're
Yeah,
built,
we're-
altruism is built into
Yes,
us.
yes, and that we don't even think
Yeah,
about
that
ourselves.
we don't think.
We want our
Well, we don't even know why.
No, right,
But-
we just want it to go on its right.
But
thing to do.
scientists will tell us that it's because of our
Right.
need for genetic continuity.
Right.
All right. They figured that.
They do,
But to go from a non-thinking state to this
right.
this supposition is a pretty big jump. But I agree that there is that we have a responsibility to our human race, to the human race,
And we would just do it.
and we would just do it. All right. Yes.
I was trying to think of a situation then where I would be helping and not receive any benefit. And I literally couldn't think of any situations. It's like, okay, let's push out the benefit. What's it like to have no, there's always a benefit.
Not if you jump in the lake to save the drowning child and drown yourself, unless you believe in reincarnation.
Yeah. We do.
In which case, everything will be
Right,
okay.
Exactly, but
But
I
I
think that
mean-
for most people, it's that there is no benefit to drowning
But she was
yourself.
talking about helping,
Yeah,
not
I was-
altruism.
When I
She
was
was-
doing that
yeah.
exercise, I was
Yeah,
trying
sorry.
to differentiate by
Yeah.
imagining a situation.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like when I teach Dharma, not online, but when I teach Dharma, there's usually a few offerings. There's not a lot because people aren't rich, but generally the cash ends up in my car, and when I pass someone who's homeless, I give what I can, which isn't a lot, but that's where it usually goes. And so you might think, okay, some people have said I wouldn't do that. You never know what they're going to do with it. And I'm like, I didn't ask for a grant application. I just want something good for them.
Yeah.
But when I do it, so you might think I get nothing out of it, but I do. I dedicate the merit toward the eventual end of homelessness and hunger. So I am getting something
Well,
out of it. I'm
but
getting the
you're
opportunity to
looking,
dedicate
but
that.
you're doing it in an altruistic manner. You're not helping. You're not helping. You're not using this. You're not using this
I don't have
scorecard which I
expectations.
described earlier.
Yeah.
I don't have expectations about what they're gonna do with it.
Yeah. Well, that would be more altruistic.
But
That
I
would
do
be
get
more
something out of it. There's something that comes back to me, even though, I don't know, I'm trying to imagine a place
And
where it
would
doesn't.
you do it if it didn't, was my point. Would you do that if you didn't get that something back?
Well, yeah. Because I still want homelessness and hunger to end.
Well, that's the point. That's the point. The cookie you're adding is that, oh, and I also get something back. And I'm saying, drop the cookie.
Okay. I'm acknowledging there is a cookie even when there shouldn't be one, maybe.
That's right. Altruism has no cookie.
Except when you
Who else? Zopa?
So I went through the same process as Tex and trying to find what would be a situation where I didn't receive benefit, and I thought of saving somebody in the lake, that type of sort of instinctual reaction to go with that. And maybe this doesn't really fall under the scope of our discussion, but I was wondering is that really altruism or not, even though you might say that's biologically built in altruism, it's not sort of a conscious motivation to.
That's right.
sort of
There's not an
bypass-
underlying, there's not altruism is an underlying motivation which carries throughout all your actions.
But-
And as I said earlier, that you can definitely have moments of altruism, and one of those would be, without even thinking, rushing in to help someone. Or like Audie Murphy charging up the hill without a weapon. And I don't know if you've even heard of Audie Murphy, but he was a World War II hero and saved a gazillion people. Anyway, or this guard this German guard, East German guard that just passed like yesterday or day before, who averted World War III by, huh? Well, he was on the East German border, and he opened the gate. He opened the gate, and that was the end. That was the fall. Otherwise, it was going to be a situation that could have started World War III. And so people were rejoicing in this single altruistic act. We don't know if he was really an altruistic person. So we can now say that there are acts of altruism which are possible for whatever reason, but then there is the altruistic attitude which underlies someone's life process. Does this mean that they're jumping in lakes and rushing out? No, it's not like that. It's not like that. Here next.
Ricochet, it seems like altruism is unflinching, like in a way. You're talking about having a continuity, but I'm thinking about
A continuity of what? Oh, a steady attitude of
a steady
altruism.
attitude.
Yes,
yeah.
that's right.
But I'm thinking, I'm also on this track of, what could be examples of not thinking about the cookie, or what examples or situations where it would be less likely that the cookie exists.
Yeah,
And I
because
would-
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, altruism to someone who has altruistic compassion, the idea of the cookie doesn't make sense. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of energy, it's the danger that one could fall into self-cherishing so quickly. That the altruistic attitude, the true altruistic compassion is devoid of self-cherishing. And there's another technical Buddhist word. No self-cherishing means no cookies. I'm sure Facebook would be interested in hearing about that, right? Now that we've defined it definitively. Yes.
I was thinking about what you said, and Zopa, about this spontaneous just jumping in to say something without thinking.
Yeah.
Since you didn't think, it couldn't be altruistic, or may not be. And I had to go back to years of your teaching about the inner mind. Just because your outer mind didn't make that altruistic choice, you may have a really well-trained interior.
Yeah.
And
We could say your subconscious mind.
so spontaneously
That's right.
altruistic without your outer mind having any impact
Yeah,
on it at all.
yeah, yeah, That's
what
true.
I was getting at, yeah.
yes.
So Rinpoche, I'm still on this track of, thinking about times when there might not be a cookie, and I can think of times, or I can think of examples where, and just a few, where I've been in situations where the person that I'm trying to be helpful to could actually really cause a lot of harm to me personally, or in a place where I'm working for, or things like that. And that the risk is kind of high.
Yes.
That might happen.
Yes.
And I've really looked at how am I responding to that? am I afraid and worried about what's going to happen to me, and trying to take care, kind of do damage control and take care of myself, or am I just in this, I don't exactly know how to describe it. It's expansive, and it does have a continuity to it, and just present to do whatever it is that's the indicated thing to do. It has a kind of clarity I think it has a kind of clarity to it that
Yeah.
helpfulness doesn't necessarily have.
Yes, all right. We could, that's a good short, that it has that altruistic compassion has a kind of supernatural clarity to it that helpfulness does not. That helpfulness is probably a more mental construct. It's a more calculated construct. It's a social construct. Altruistic compassion does not. By the way, I wrote this just earlier and made a pretty picture, and this is what I do on Facebook, and I teach on Facebook. And I said, altruism does not violate common sense. That there's a kind of huge, reasonable common sense. It's not mystical, it's common sense, because there are universal principles that arrive with altruistic compassion, and one of those is fairness. That it is, you could say, reasonable, common sense, logical, but you could also call it fairness. And there is that these universal principles of fairness are bigger than culture or time. And enlightened attitudes, such as altruistic compassion and others, are in alignment with universal principles as well as higher common sense. And so there is something, and people are alluding to, there's this something bigger, maybe touching universal principles of fairness and common sense. Make us feel good. Why? Because that's more real than what we're trying to do. We're trying to do it the small and complicated way, when there is a very easy and magnificent way that accomplishes so much in such a pleasant way. And altruistic compassion also invites others into that attitude. That as we have, regarding help, as we have a kind of buying and selling or doing what we can, or the social kind of helpfulness that we offer to others, this trains those around us to hold that same attitude. In the same way, altruistic compassion invites others to altruistic compassion. It inspires others. Helpfulness actually inspires in a certain way, or maybe helpfulness makes others feel obliged to be helpful. That they feel that they're not a good person, that they're not a socially responsible person unless they help. Whereas altruistic compassion is like, altruistic compassion. I saw a child, a young, gawky young man, probably 8 or 9 years old, who was running down the street with his arms like a windmill, just running as fast as he could, with arms just pumping. And like that is altruistic compassion. That there is a kind of, you don't care what people think. You don't care what you look like when you're altruism. There's no self-consciousness at all in altruism. That you are in love with what you're doing. And that's why altruistic people live lives that they feel are rich. and they enjoy it. They enjoy that. It's a kind of youthfulness that is unabashed. It's unabashed. Everything that we want it to be is not in helpfulness, it's in altruism. When the altruistic person helps somebody, and that person says, yes, that bodhisattva helped me, good, because they know what help means, and they're happy to be helped. The bodhisattva doesn't say, oh, I bestowed altruistic compassion upon you. You can't say I helped you. I benefited you in the most extreme manner. No, the bodhisattva is happy. Hey, somebody got helped. And that's what bodhisattvas do. And there's huge difference between help and altruistic compassion. When you have achieved, when you are practicing altruistic compassion, sometimes you're just kidding yourself. Oh yeah, I did that, I was totally altruistic. Just, everyone said I was, They could see how altruistic I was. Well, okay, that was a very nice thing for you to do because you're practicing altruism. And you're going to fail miserably, and you're going to pick yourself up and going, well, that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And that is why Buddhists are not called Buddhas. They're called Buddhists, because they're practicing these skills. And as they gain proficiency in these skills, they achieve breakthroughs where those skills become part of their nature. And they don't have to think about it anymore. That they, like someone who is an expert piano player, they don't have to think about playing the piano, that's it. People who have altruistic compassion as part of their nature, you never know what they're going to do next. Because they are free from self-cherishing. And the key to the altruistic compassion does not lie in those who are practicing altruism, but for those who have achieved altruism, who have achieved the transformation. They call it bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means the mind of enlightenment. Bodhisattva, the being who has the bodhi mind, who has the altruistic mind bonded to an understanding of the absolute illusory nature of the world. So one might say, why would someone be altruistic, have altruistic great compassion, when everything is illusory? Find out for yourself. Discover how it can happen. How can it be that you would not just become so disappointed that you would say, oh, the hell with these human beings. I'm going to go and become enlightened and just sit on your butts. No, it doesn't work that way.
Well, when I ask that question, I usually do it the other way. Why would it be beneficial for a bodhisattva to know the world is illusory? And the answer is so you don't get sucked into the drama, because when you get sucked into the drama, your ability to help is so limited.
That's right.
So, I mean, I always turn that around. I understand the way you're asking it, but I always turn it around.
When we're practicing altruism, you're going to do it any way you can to gain the preliminary skills in order to reduce self-cherishing. And the way we reduce self-cherishing is meditation, compassion practices. There's many different wonderful compassion practices. Saturday, we're going to be doing what? Tonglen. We're going to be I'll teach you Tonglen. This is a compassion practice that will definitely help yourself and help others. You might be surprised, and has a very good effect. So, who else would like to? The difference between, we're working on the difference between help and altruistic compassion. Yeah.
There's something about the subtlety of altruistic compassion compared to, I'm thinking about helping as, responding to a need or seeing a need and
Responding to a
it.
need. That's something that no one has said. Just really, and before, remember your point. But the whether it's altruistic compassion or whether it's being a helper, that the key here is that the helper or the one who has altruistic compassion must notice the need. And that separates the helpers from people who are not helpers. There are people who just go through life and they don't turn left or right. They aren't aware of what other people are doing. They aren't aware of other people's emotions or other people's feelings. They just kind of bluster through, just doing their own thing. And there's lots of people like that. But helpers are not. It's like always looking to see if there's something that they can do or someone that they can help. And that is, you can't do it. You can't do that unless you notice. And the bodhisattvas notice in many different ways, through the internal method, through deeper internal method, through those who are in human form, through their eyes. They're not looking at themselves. They're not looking at themselves. And helpers are learning how to not keep looking at oneself, but they're actually looking for something that they can help with, somebody that they can help. What a wonderful world this would be. Everyone was a helper. Please, what you were saying.
Yeah, so then I was thinking of the subtlety of altruistic compassion, that
The subtlety
might
of
be
altruistic
in
compassion.
a situation where you're aware of the needs, but they aren't explicitly expressed by
Right.
the individual. And just how you communicate or something you share, or something you model.
Something you model, just being.
Yeah.
That this that produces benefit without saying a word. I mean, you could say a word too, but just your presence, and the presence of altruistic compassion in this world is powerfully needed. Powerfully needed. We need more bodhisattvas. We need more bodhisattvas. And the more problems that there are, the more trouble there is in the world, the more we need our bodhisattvas. And that means that you can't give up. You can't give up. What would you like to say?
It's, it seems like helpfulness is different from altruism in that helpfulness sort of creates a bond with the person that you're helping, whereas altruism creates a bond with that transcends the person.
The what?
Transcends the person that you're helping.
Transcends the person. That being helpful very often has a feeling of wanting to bond with that particular individual and to have a relationship, whereas altruism is not about relationships. However, the bodhisattvas have a relationship with something that is called all sentient beings. All sentient beings. And so the example person that is being helped, the person who is being helped individually is the example, all sentient beings, but the focus is to benefit all sentient beings and not just one individual.
Rinpoche, I have a question. In the difference between helpfulness and altruism, when you asked about helpfulness, I was going to say helpfulness is remembering someone's qualities when they've forgotten, or remembering somebody's potential when they've forgotten.
Yes?
And I'm
It's sort of
wondering-
holding, you might say that, like holding space for the person that they actually are, and not just the person who is in difficulty at this time.
Almost like it might have an inspiration or resonance to it, but I'm wondering if that's actually part of altruism, that there's a deeper wisdom of remembering
Wholeness.
wholeness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very good. Very good. There's a kind of feeling behind altruistic compassion that exudes the message, you're actually okay. You're actually okay. That it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. That and I think that many therapists have either learned or discovered this very point in working with people who are extremely troubled, saying whatever it is that's happening now, you are actually okay. Maybe you're going through hard times, but you are okay. In fact, you are wonderful. And this is not a Pollyanna idea. I'm not going to go into why is the esoteric reason. But that understanding how the ups and downs of human life and of practitioners, not perfect, the encouragement that one needs to regain their composure. It's very nice to have someone tell you, you're actually okay. I know this is tough, but you're actually okay. And that kind of helpfulness requires, whether you're a helper or a bodhisattva, it requires a kind of not separation, but that it does not require an empathic response. There is a different feeling to that kind of response, rather than, oh, you poor darling, let me give you a hug. I know that this is terrible and those people are really awful, and that is one way that you can comfort someone. And the other way is to tell them that they are, although they may be going through difficulty, that the person, is special and capable, and everything will come out just as it is, just as it is. The bodhisattvas come to this world in abundance during times of trouble. They are here to rescue living beings, and it's very good to consider ourselves as someone who would like to be rescued. In other words, from the Buddhist terminology, that we are open to being helped, that we are open to being helped. That we don't know what that help is. We don't even know what it is that we need. We don't know what we want. And we've explored all different kinds of ideas of how we want to approach this problem, this difficulty. And it may not be that at all. It may not be what we need. We don't know what we need. And so we pray, please give me what I need. I'm not asking for anything in particular. Buddhists often ask for development. Well, maybe your development required trouble. Is that okay? Is that okay? No, it's not okay. It's not okay. Nobody wants trouble. The bodhisattvas don't want trouble. Nobody wants trouble. But your growth, and your development and your transformation, the more you want to be awakened, the more trouble you're looking for. But it's the learning kind of trouble that you're getting. But as a Buddhist, and trouble comes and you go, oh, this is all. How can I be Buddhist when I have to? Come on, people, grow up. I mean, is that too harsh? Probably. This is your learning. This is your learning. You came to a place with a suitcase full of trouble already. And then you're unpacking it and you're going, oh, this is so bad. And then you find some glittery toy in your suitcase. Oh, this is so amazing. Look at my pretty, look at my luck. I'm so special. Oh no, this next thing is trouble. This is samsara. This is your place where you're supposed to be learning how to deal with your own troubles. Not by cracking everyone on the head, but by learning. There's something here that we need to learn in order to transform. That's why you're here. You didn't come here to be an hourly wage slave. You came here to learn how to transform. Why? Because this is not your true home. But you're stuck here until you really get it, till you really understand. And what's the best way to do this? Develop altruistic compassion. Most important tool that we can ever get. So I hope this hasn't been too confusing for introduction. On Saturday, we have more time. I want to talk about some of the ways that altruism is expressed. It's not impossible. Myriad human beings have become awakened. Don't think, oh, that was easy for them. They lived in China or Tibet or India, like that. This is America, this is Wisconsin. How can that happen here? Every human being is capable of awakening. So don't be lazy. Don't even take your car home tonight. You should walk home. People who live across the street have no problem like that. Just go upstairs. I'm just kidding about that. We must be about our actual work, which is transformation. You are capable of doing it. I'm giving you the correct encouragement, and that's that. Gewadi nyutudak lama sangidukane dro chikimalupa di salago parasho. My prayer is, may I dedicate the merits of what I have done here tonight and the teaching, and due to those merits, may I become the chief leading Buddha in order to rescue all sentient beings. So it never stops. It never stops. Good. Thank you. See you tomorrow. We're going to do yoga. We're going to do an hour of Bikram hot yoga, and then we're going to do, no, we're not going to do yoga, but we'll be at a yoga studio.